Thank you, Jeff, for that kind introduction. This year, the VOLS family and the larger New York community legal family lost two great lawyers and great men and servants, Mike Cooper and Bill Dean, whom we would like to pause to remember today. Mike Cooper was the epitome of the fully realized lawyer, formidable and renowned as a litigator and trial lawyer, but equally recognized for his public service and his passionate and tireless efforts to improve the lives of others who could never afford to pay him, in ways that highlighted the enormity of his heart, along with his tremendous intellect and energy. Mike was particularly remarkable in his solicitude for the vulnerable and for folks who had made mistakes and desperately needed a second chance. To offer a tribute to Mike, we're fortunate to have with us Suhana, Mike's fellow litigation partner and friend from Sullivan and Cromwell. Suhana?
Thanks, John. There just isn't enough time during this program to gush about Mike's long list of achievements, awards, and recognitions. That would take days. And I could also spend hours and hours going on and on and on about Mike's legal acumen. When I first joined Sullivan and Cromwell, all of the associates had heard about the brilliant Mike Cooper. And I experienced this firsthand when I worked with him for the first time on the litigation arising from the 2004 merger between JP Morgan and Bank One. From that point on, admittedly, I was a little intimidated and definitely in awe. I realized that Mike was someone who was fiercely dedicated, not only to achieving the best results for his clients, but also mentoring younger lawyers like me at the time and supporting their advancement. I was so fortunate to have Mike as a mentor. Although he was so busy, he always made time for me and was genuinely interested in how I was doing both professionally and personally. And he similarly dedicated such time to many other lawyers at the firm. And through his example, Mike inspired me to take on pro bono cases on behalf of those looked upon most unfavorably. Not only did Mike passionately advocate for civil rights and legal services for the poor, he worked tirelessly to assist lawyers facing disciplinary actions, to give convicted felons a second chance, and to secure the release of a Guantanamo detainee who had been held for years without any charges. Mike also offered invaluable support when I represented an Alabama death row inmate for over 15 years. We all miss Mike. Although he's not here with us today, we can still honor his memory. And we can do this by continuing Mike's courageous fight to protect the rights of those neglected, scorned, and most vulnerable.
Thanks, Suhana, for those terrific perspectives on an extraordinary man and great friend. Bill Dean, who led VOLS as its executive director for 25 years and defined its role in the New York City community, learned somehow along the way in that adventure that among his many extraordinary gifts, he had a particular one that would become the core of his legacy. That was the gift of ability to persuade busy people to give their time and energy to help fellow New Yorkers facing tremendous difficulties. When you hear people talk about Bill, you will soon notice how often they start with an anecdote about how Bill grabbed them in an unguarded moment and then persuaded them to commit themselves to helping a person in need. Hundreds and ultimately thousands of times he did this, leveraging his natural and lifelong heartfelt empathy for people facing difficulties into what sometimes felt like a movement of volunteer pro bono soldiers. How did he do it? It wasn't so complicated for him on a personal level. The needs were obvious, and he viewed as equally obvious both the human and professional obligations to help with the people he asked for help, and the consistent conclusions of those volunteers that their own lives, as well as the people they helped, were enriched by saying yes. As much as he was a throwback gentleman, gentle in his speech and manner, and preternaturally kind, unhurried, and wry, his conviction about the importance of volunteering legal services and otherwise helping the needy was like steel. For years, Bill's regular New York Law Journal column on pro bono work and the VOLS law firm pledge he created were, in all of New York City, the most consistent and powerful public exhortations to private New York lawyers to do more. The successful urgings over the years made his voice seem to be everywhere as a steady inspiration to lawyers to pursue their better selves through acts of personal generosity. What a legacy that is. It is ultimately the root of the continuing VOLS mission we celebrate today. To honor that legacy, today we are dedicating our Pro Bono Stars recognition to Bill's memory by designating it appropriately as the Dean's List, as a way to perpetuate his animating spirit in the next generation of volunteers in service to the community in our city. Many, probably most of the members of the Dean's List who will be placed on it in the years to come will never have met Bill. But when you feel a volunteer culture of commitment to pro bono in your firm or in your community, at least some of what you feel is the continuing spirit of Bill. We will also be launching a fundraising campaign to dedicate a virtual plaque in Bill's honor to help recognize outstanding volunteer lawyers for many years to come in service to our community through VOLS. Before we hear next about this year's Dean's List, please join me in a brief moment of silence to remember our friends Mike Cooper and Bill Dean. Thank you.